So, judge ready, opponents ready, my time starts. Now, my opponent and I firmly affirm the resolution, Judge. What we're talking about is where to increase spending if the money best serves as the solution of poverty in China and finds the effective roots of poverty. We're facing severe 2020 new challenges brought by COVID-19, aging population, medical care, which is the #1 reason leading to poverty. So who can use the money to solve these current problems effectively will win this debate. Framework. The main actor in this debate will be poorer individuals. Which side can show benefits to poorer individuals more effective and feasible in combating poverty still new way. Judge, put yourself in a position of giving money. The person who has persuaded you to give the money to is the person who should win. Definitions. Welfare programs provided by government, including healthcare, job training, pensions, housing assistance, DBL, and education, not only conditional cash transfers. 2. Public infrastructure. Public was construction, operation, finances, other high-quality skills needed projects. Contention 1. Only welfare programs can combat poverty brought by COVID-19 in short term. From short-term perspective, welfare subsidies should be directly given to companies to stop the bankruptcy and unemployment due to the COVID-19 to recover the economy. According to the Financial Times, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to an economic downturn. Areas that were already deprived have been some of the hardest hit. In addition, China's unemployment rate surged to 6% due to the bankruptcy of about 460,000 companies. The Chinese government has already taken several measures, including freeing up 500 billion yuan as subsidies to support the economy and to make companies return. Thus, the process suggests that now it is not the time to invest in long-term infrastructure, but to solve existing problems as soon as possible by providing more subsidies to prevent unemployment. What we should do is to stop them from losing their jobs. Only welfare subsidies can reach this goal. Contention 2. Welfare programs create jobs in long term. Subpoint A. Infrastructure no longer create jobs. According to worldbank.org, 1/3 of the working age population in low and middle income areas lack the education of basic skills required to get quality jobs. However, infrastructure projects are capital intensive but not labor intensive. Automation has been a substitute of the most low labor infrastructure works. Road and factory construction requires less skill and work size. 60% of the production factories moved out of China to Vietnam and Indonesia. Most of the poor have lost their major occupation. Looking for better paying jobs, many farmers moved out of the rural areas to urban centers and even causing an increase in urban poverty. Since most of the poor are not qualified to do infrastructure works, only by job training can mature the skills. Point B, our best solution to mature the skills is through vocational training. And educational welfare, having nice skills, etc., is a short-term training that can change people into high-skilled workers. But the government putting more subsidies into job training welfare programs can fit people to vacancies and reduce the employment rates. Data from World of Labor shows that in China, people within vocational will be 70% more likely to find jobs. Thus, vocational training enables the poor to no longer depend on DBL or other social welfare, has a better prospect in poverty alleviation. 3. Welfare is the only way to solve poverty brought by aging population and healthcare. China's aging population is expanding fast and reached 230 million in 2016 at a very high speed. Rural pension, the inefficiency of welfare providers remain unresolved. In the core system of the welfare regime for rural residents, the new rural pension only a small portion of the target population, offering only 8% of the recipients' average income. The current social pension average is only 155 yuan per month in the provinces, which has been accused by many people that is too little. The pension is the only source of their income since they cannot work. What's more, according to the National Bureau of Statistics in China, among the poor people in rural China, the number of the elderly in poverty due to illness was 44.1%, and long-term chronic diseases reached 22.14%. High medical fee has become a serious economic burden to rural elderly population. Therefore, China now urgently needs to solve the problem of low pension coverage and rising medical care fee by spending more money on expand pension with the family. In conclusion, I firmly stand on pro. Thank you.
Okay, is everyone ready?
One sec. Judge DeGraff, can you turn off your mic? We can hear you typing.
Okay, so everyone ready? My time starts now. We believe that poverty alleviation should not only give people direct cash flow, but more importantly, empowers them with the capability to sustain themselves in the long term. Thus, we proudly as the concept, we're not saying welfare spending should be stopped, but the resolution asks us whether welfare or infrastructure spending should be prioritized, and we believe the answer is infrastructure. Framework. Whichever team proves their alleviation poverty works both in long-term and short-term should win this debate. Contention 1, welfare is full of risk. Point 8, mistargeting of DBAL programs. Qin Gao, a professor of social works at Columbia University, found that DBAL has a limited at best modest impact on reducing China's poverty rates. Gao estimated that 76% of 2007 urban DBAL recipients were actually ineligible. A separate study found that rural DBAL program excluded almost 87% of the poor, while included about 82% of the non-poor in 2013. The rates of mistargeting of DBAL are constantly increasing throughout the years. This causes harm to the majority of the actual poor people who were supposed to have access to DBAL but cannot. This proves that this policy has problems, and if we focus on increased spending on welfare programs, this problem will become more severe. The people who don't need DBAL desperately tries to get it, which increases the mistargeting rates. Allowing this kind of behavior will lead to a severe, contagious, slippery slope of people thinking that this is allowable behavior and proceed on to do it, all in which can lead to a worse society. Subpoint B, psychological burden of DBAL recipients. After a potential recipient follows a written DBAL application, local community officials visit and search the applicant's house and their place of work to verify the claims. Officials proceed to interview neighbors and workmates to ensure the potential DBAL recipient is being truthful, showing the applicant's personal information in the process. The process is dehumanizing and creates stigma towards the poor. According to Alex Smith, who interviewed DBAL recipients in 2020, said that stigma affects their life and express their shame and despair. Consequently, many potential recipients even forego applying for the DBAL in the first place. The DBAL programs are actually not treating the poor as equal and shreds their self-esteem. Contention 2, infrastructure alleviates poverty. Point 8, benefit trading and lower prices. Infrastructure goods cheaper for these rural cities to import material and send their own products to the rest of China and the world. With transportation infrastructure, workers' incentive to migrate to coastal cities are expected to diminish as they cannot find jobs in their own regions. For example, the Tibet Railway boosted Tibet's economy, which provides development. Tibet's gross domestic product has soared from 34.2 billion yuan in 2006 to 80.2 billion yuan in 2013, an average annual growth of at least 10%. The railway has brought a surge of tourists, boosting Tibet's tourism, hospitality, and manufacturing sectors. The tourism revenues grew to 16.5 billion yuan in 2013 from 1.95 billion yuan in 2005. The people of Tibet now easily find jobs related to tourism and the manufacturing of goods. Subpoint B, e-commerce. Government needs to build the digital and physical infrastructure that make it possible for people to transact online and e-commerce can efficiently solve poor people's poverty issues. China Mainstream Investment Group announced its plan to invest 10 billion yuan to connect farmers with urban customers through an online to offline model. The online transactions and e-commerce related services such as delivery, warehouse greatly contribute to the local GDP and household disposable income while creating new jobs directly. It has also transformed the mentality of rural residents and encouraged them to actively participate in the market economy. In addition, logistics and warehouses also generate employment, which is beneficial to alleviating areas. Subpoint C, foreign direct investment. Foreign companies already have a presence in China's major coastal provinces. As the costs rise in those areas, foreign investors are beginning to seek facilities inland. China's large secondary markets, such as Sichuan and Hunan, and other inland cities and provinces, all require infrastructure investments. With more infrastructure investments, and the fact that these markets are not global cities, land prices and wages are lower, which could make them more attractive to foreign investors. With foreign investment, people in these inner rural regions of China will be provided with jobs. All of these create economic growth, which according to OECD is the most powerful instrument for reducing poverty and improving the quality of life. Thus, we strongly urge for con ballot. Thank you.
All right, crossfire.
Okay. So for my first question, through her contention, I didn't see any the root causes of the poverty. So I want to ask, what is the 2020 challenges of solving poverty?
Well, poverty, there are a lot of reasons for poverty because the most important reason is that these people inhabit in rural areas. So with the building of transportation, they are able to travel, and then with the building of infrastructure, they're able to find their jobs.
So how can you ensure that provided money to infrastructure can alleviate poverty directly without there's no
as we have proof,
interventions like corruption or
as we have proved in our contention, with building these infrastructures like railways and highways, import prices from the coastal cities to these become cheaper, so people will have incentive to stay in these areas without paying like too much money, which can better alleviate the problem.
Even if the
I think it's my turn to ask the question.
Okay.
Sure. So why do you so what is the reason that people become poor during COVID?
Because companies are going to bankrupt. So
No, it's because people don't have the
company
job.
bankrupt,
With
and
building
then all the
infrastructure.
employees. Please let me finish my answer.
Okay.
And most of the employees, they lose their jobs and they have no other income.
Exactly.
So
That's why these poor people, that's why infrastructure can benefit these poor people, because these poor people can have jobs during, these poor people can have jobs with the building of infrastructure that can benefit them through problems
but
like
infrastructure is a very long-term project. They cannot be like retained in a short
Then
term.
how about in the short term? What can you help these poor people in the short term? Can you?
Of course, like government given subsidies. It is the most direct and efficient.
Well,
like
how about like
efficient
in the long
solution.
term? Can you provide these people with benefits in the long term instead of just giving them?
Could you repeat your question?
Okay, so you're just giving these poor people money. How can you how can you make sure that these poor people will have incentive to keep working and not be dependent on welfare?
I've mentioned the job training program. The job training program is a kind of educational
So
program.
if you put these people into job training programs, how can you ensure that they will find jobs in the future?
Well,
How about statistics showing that?
Well, so can you guarantee that with infrastructure, all the people will be employed, or
well, there is
they
a
will
bigger
get
chance of being employed compared to welfare, because with the building of infrastructure, we get evidence that Tibet has a better manufacturing
And then
sector.
how about the
and then,
elderly? What about the elderly and the women?
Okay, so we're not completely eliminating
infrastructure.
Okay.
They're
We're not
not able to.
completely
You should
eliminating
consider the
welfare in our
vulnerable.
world, so then these old people can still have pensions. However, in your world, you're not considering for these children and these like normal poor people, right?
Okay, judge ready, opponents ready. Okay, so in response to your first contention about how welfare is full of risk and not a statement to work, I want to first point out about the corruption of infrastructure. First, a layer of analysis: the public transportation sector is subject to massive corruption by consumption firms. According to Mikiso 14, corruption was a statistically significant determinant of total state expenditure, and states of higher levels of corruption are likely to favor capital construction highways at the expense of social sectors such as total education, elementary and secondary education, health and hospitals. In cross-national analysis, the construction industry is consistently ranked as one of the most corrupt industries. Kenny explains why corruption prevails in this industry. First, construction involves a large, complex, non-standard activity, so the quality of construction can be very hard to assess. And second, domestic and international construction industries are dominated by few monopolistic firms. And third, the industry is very closely linked to the government. This demonstrates it's very harmful in terms that it's actually not providing any goods compared to our welfare, where we are actually providing these goods for the poor people. Instead, it's actually not doing any good, not of any sort, to these poor people, and instead is alleviating the gap between the rich and poor in terms of all the revenue from these infrastructure goes to these poor. This is why corruption directly hurts the poor. According to Gupta et al. 02, an increase of 1 standard deviation in corruption increases the Gini coefficient of income equality by about 11 points and reduces the income growth of the poor by about 5 percentage per year. And a 1 standard deviation increase in the growth of corruption reduces the income growth of the poor by 4.7 percentage points per year, which is considerable given the average income growth of 0.6% a year. This leads to dire consequences that the poor aren't benefited anymore, and this violates our framework in terms of we want to alleviate people from poverty. And about your second point, how to actually alleviate poverty, I want to point out that first off, infrastructure actually, I'm not sure if the con is aware of the fact that actually infrastructure costs a lot of money and it's actually not benefiting the economy at all. According to CNBC 2020, infrastructure costs 68 trillion annually, and mass amount are unused and redundant. And 91% of the land in China already has basic infrastructure, thus further constructed infrastructure is not necessarily. Therefore, I urge you to tell me about why infrastructure is especially so necessary in the further of the speech. And other point is about how urbanization actually causes income inequality. According to survey 2015, White identified the rural-urban income gap driven by secular decline in agricultural prices and rapid urbanization as a key determinant of income equality. In particular, the hukou system incentive had to have contributed to the rural-urban income equality by restricting internal migration. Income equality directly hurts the economic and growth, and a wide income equality is a large experiment because the rich get more money instead of poor are not getting any money. Now, I want to also respond to your point about how it creates more jobs. Now, I have 3 layers of analysis. The first is about thing to know is that importance to delineate between gross and net job creation. Oftentimes, these jobs go to people who actually work for construction companies in the first place, and it's not creating any jobs at all. If it, for example, if a given amount of infrastructure spending supports like 1 million jobs in total, this does not mean that the economy as a whole will see an increase in employment of 1 million. Rather, a portion of these 1 million jobs may be pulled from currently employed sectors of the economy. In simpler words, this means that there's not a guarantee of more jobs, and the truth to this is that the workers from one company with a job will be the workers working on the structure. Therefore, there are no jobs created, and essentially no jobs for the unemployed. And even if there are jobs created, if you assert, it only creates jobs for it doesn't benefit the poor at all, because it's still raising money for the rich that they actually own this infrastructure, and all the money goes to them. Now, again, the second layer of analysis is that jobs just go to high-skilled workers who actually know how to use machinery. According to Heritage Foundation, requires a relatively small number of highly skilled workers using advanced equipment and machinery. And total such construction employs just 0.2% of all workers. This includes less skilled employees on the work sites. Even doubling the sector would have only small effects on overall employment. And many workers need to have advanced skills to effectively and safely use construction equipment. And infrastructure spending actually is not helping the unemployed population, because few unemployed actually have the skills to work in these infrastructure. According to Shrek 13, just 8.5% of the unemployed previously working occupation heavily utilized highways, street, or bridges. 1/5 of the workers in highway, street, and heavy construction equipment. 1 in 200 employed worker previously working such jobs. And federal construction contractor will hire the skilled workers workforce they need away from private construction projects. A new job created will primarily come at the expense of other jobs in the private sector. This means that there are no jobs. This shows that spending on infrastructure won't benefit the unemployed at all, because without the skill to operate such jobs,
Okay. Judges ready? Our opponents ready? It starts now. So first, my opponents talked about COVID, but the reason why people became poor during COVID-19 is that they lose capacity to work where there's not enough work for people to do. This cannot be solved by welfare, because welfare doesn't provide new job opportunities. In fact, China has relied heavily on new opportunities. For example, build the infrastructure for renewable energy. Renewable energy has rapidly developed over the last decade and provided China, which has always ranked first in the world for clean energy, with more than 4 million jobs. China's economy was the first to be struck by the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was also the first to recover. Moreover, prompt, decisive, and effective government responses, the damage was not as deep as that suffered by other countries, and has surprised many with its resilience. However, the pandemic is still raging across the world, and the end is not yet in sight. As a result, exports, which is so crucial for economic growth and employment in China, face an uncertain future. Investments in new infrastructure cannot only support economic demand, but it will also immediately create jobs. Because of the overall uncertainty, Premier Ling Keqiang, in his 2020 work report, emphasized the importance of employment and announced a target of 9 million new urban jobs in 2020. New infrastructure investments can play a key role in achieving the target, as well as the goal of keeping urban employment below 6%. And our opponents also talked about how welfare creates jobs. But I need to point out to you that it doesn't. Between welfare and infrastructure is the one that is creating mass amounts of jobs. For example, infrastructure can create a lot of jobs. China's 5G industry will directly create over 3 million jobs by 2025. Services will include high definition video and reality services that can benefit the poor. Furthermore, China is expected to generate 46 million jobs for the Belt and Road Project management by 2027. These jobs will help to alleviate poverty, and the services provided by infrastructure will also help the poor people in their needs. And also, jobs created by infrastructure are not short-term. By constructing the infrastructure such as railways, many jobs are created. The example my partner gave in her constructive speech is the Tibet Railway. Because of the Tibet Railway, trade and tourism flourished in Tibet. Jobs related to manufacturing and tourism are also thus created and provided. Poor people in rural areas are exposed to all these benefits and jobs once the infrastructure is built. So there is absolutely no reason to not build an infrastructure. And as long as the railway stands, the benefits and the jobs stand. Thus, we're able to conclude that both the benefits and the economy and the job opportunities created are long-term. And also, these jobs are not low paid. In inner China, construction workers are 150 RMB per day, and the average construction worker salary is 57,151 per RMB per month, or an equivalent hourly rate of 27 RMB, which is way above the absolute poverty line that is 800 RMB annually, which means that people are only in absolute poverty because no job opportunities are exposed to them. As long as the construction worker is able to work for as little as 19, he is able to get 2,800 RMB. This proves that infrastructure works both long-term and short-term, while welfare programs are unable to have any long-term benefits, and its short-term benefits are not as beneficial as the ones provided by infrastructure. And then our opponents also talked about education, how welfare provides education, but we don't disagree that welfare provides some education. However, infrastructure provides education in a more effective way that can benefit more people. With the soft infrastructure like schools being built, students are able to enjoy their education with decent facility. Lesser money spent on infrastructure will create chaotic situations like not having schools for children to learn in the first place. And our opponents were also mistaken in the reasons why schools, by building infrastructure, we can attract more high quality teachers to rural areas, thus spreading this portion of better educational outcomes. And that's why Judge would strongly urge for a ballot. Thank you.
Okay, may I ask my first question?
Is what?
May I have my first question, please? So you talk about how jobs by infrastructure are actually more long-term. Even if this is true, they clearly have stated it's not. I want to point out that without the skill to operate their jobs, it's very likely their jobs are actually going to be replaced by machinery and technology in the future. And how is this exactly long-term? Can you elaborate?
For example, I already stated this in my rebuttal, but I'm going to repeat this over again. For example, my partner in her constructive speech gave example of the Tibet Railway, and the Tibet Railway encouraged trade in Tibet and also encouraged tourism in Tibet.
Actually in this infrastructure, in this corruption,
For example,
and they don't exactly know how to,
so there are more jobs like related to manufacturing goods are like provided. For example, like because there is trading, then more goods are demanded by other people around the world, and because there are more goods, demanded, then more goods will need to be manufactured, and thus more jobs will be provided related to manufacturing goods. And also, there are also jobs created by tourism. While people come to Tibet, they'll need guides, and
these will go to the unemployed, and these will go to the ones in poverty. How can you explain that this is exactly going to them, which is what we are trying to prove?
Okay, so if you work, you'll get wages, right? So if as we said, like by providing them with job opportunities, they can easily get above the absolute poverty line, which is what the
asking
is trying to do.
Are you sure that this will go to the people in poverty, not about whether they will benefit from it, whether they actually go to these people? Because according to my research, it goes to people that actually have these skills, which clearly isn't the unemployed, because they don't have these skills to do these things. Therefore, they cannot actually construct these.
Let me remind you again, we're building these railways in rural poor areas, and also I need to remind you that some manufacturing doesn't require a lot of skills, and most of the unemployed can't do manufacturing.
Will be replaced by either machinery or technology in the future, and it's not needed anymore in the future. And how is this exactly long term, as you stated?
I'm sorry, I missed your question. Can you?
So if you said that they don't need a lot of skill, do you agree that this will actually be replaced by machinery or technology in the future? And how is it exactly long term, as you state, if it's going to be replaced anyways?
So are you asking can or cannot the employed be replaced?
I'm saying that they will be replaced in the future because they don't require a lot of skills, and it's not either going.
I'm sorry, but I think it's my turn to ask the question. I'm sorry. So can you explain how can welfare programs create job opportunities?
Welfare program create jobs opportunity because we are giving them the skills, we are educating them, we're giving them job training that allows them to.
But I also rebutted on that by saying that welfare programs don't exactly create jobs. Like you said that welfare programs can provide them with education, but it actually cannot because there's no school, there's no high quality teachers, and
give them the opportunity to find jobs. This is why we are alleviating out of poverty. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the summary speech from Pro.
Okay, I need 1 minute prep time.
Okay, so your
Okay.
time's up.
Judge ready, opponents ready. My time starts now. I'd like to begin my summary by restating the burdens. The burden of the pros to show why we need more money on welfare programs to alleviate poverty effectively, and we have done it. Now, I would like to summarize how our contention stood up against our opponent's attack. First, we have clearly shown that without more subsidies given in welfare, the problem of aging population still exists to create poverty. Economy stagnant brought by COVID-19 also cannot be solved in short term without welfare. Two, we have given contentions and well solutions on medical fee and aging group leading to poverty that they couldn't attack. During Crossfire, when we asked what are 2020 challenges in China to alleviate poverty, our opponents didn't answer it clearly. So even they don't know what the root problems cause the poverty, how can they solve the problem effectively? So now, Judge, let's weigh the impacts. First, we have a higher efficiency in both short-term and long-term by first directly giving money from the government to the corporations. The second, the job training programs. However, our opponents have no impacts and their solutions are less effective. Their contentions totally don't fit their framework for long-term and short-term perspective. Also, infrastructure wastes a lot of money. According to CNBC, infrastructure wastes $68 trillion annually. Large amount of buildings remain to be unused and are redundant. Infrastructure are also overfunding, keep stagnant. 91% area in China has already been covered by necessary infrastructure. So what it states is that it is not a money problem, but a strategy problem. We should not focus on putting money on infrastructure, but putting money on welfare programs. And also, we totally outweighed first our impact is of great importance and magnitude and social responsibility because we're the one who not only care about the majority of the society, but also take the elderly and the vulnerable into consideration, treat them equally. Second, our timeline is the most updated. We have new solutions for COVID-19 economy depression, which may prevent a lot of people falling back to poverty line. Three, our solutions are more feasible. By using job training project, it created 15 million new jobs fitted in 2019 instead of the unfitted jobs provided by infrastructure. However, our opponents are not able to defend their position. They have not done a good job of showing why their infrastructure needs more money, how they will use the money in further actions of alleviating poverty, as the they haven't given us ample information. During the crossfire, when they asked us question about how they will they're assuming that only with infrastructure all the people will get jobs. However, they didn't consider elderly, the vulnerable. And also in rebuttal, they mentioned the infrastructure work such as building to bay to railway and is sustainable. However, all the building projects are seasonal. Even railroads are built in rural areas. They are poor. They cannot even afford the ticket money. So the construction of it brings nothing. It is only a waste of money. Second, spending money on infrastructure, they say spending money on infrastructure benefit education. However, without welfare, they cannot get good teaching resources. And also, corruption is also a very large factor leading to the.
Can I have 1 minute of prep time? Thank you. Hi, I think I'm ready. Okay, so everyone ready? My time starts now. To start off this speech, judges, let me remind you of our stand. We're not saying that welfare spending should be stopped. We are prioritizing infrastructure, adding a unit to the government's budget of infrastructure, which means that elderly poor people are still able to get their pension and people still are able to get their minimum guarantee in the status quo. However, infrastructure needs to be prioritized because it provides both short-term and long-term benefits, as I will restate later. Second, there is still room for spending on infrastructure in China in the status quo. According to the International Monetary Fund, China's public capital stock per capita is still much lower than the US and China. China is also still urbanizing. Moreover, most international resources recognize that the country's infrastructure development remains below standard. Thus, the increased spending on infrastructure is needed to provide better infrastructure to the people in the rural areas. Now, moving on to the clashes in this debate. The main clash in this debate is about employment. Infrastructure creates jobs. Infrastructure has always been creating jobs, and infrastructure will create jobs in the future. We win this clash because, first of all, we have provided with you of direct evidence of the 5G industry creating 3 million jobs and the Belt and Road initiatives creating 88 million jobs. In the past, the building of these infrastructure even needs people to have these jobs. So as we have already provided with you, building these infrastructure can also alleviate people out of poverty because people can earn up to 100 a day. And second of all, opponents did not provide any piece of evidence of welfare creating jobs. Welfare creates dependency on the poor people. The poor people, they lose their income after welfare. And my opponents provided you with a weird logic. They said that they're educating people so that people can have jobs, but without infrastructure, they cannot even successfully educate people because there's no facilities being used. Well, my opponents said that the quality of the construction will be bad and there will be corruption. However, they showed no statistics and no evidence about corruption happening anywhere in the world. And my opponents also mentioned that poor people cannot afford ticket money on highways. We have many responses. First, these highways and railways are used for transportation of the goods from the coastal cities to the rural areas so that they can enjoy cheaper prices of goods. And secondly, if these people can indeed afford these money because it's only less than 100, less than what they can make a day. And furthermore, comparing the benefits of this, of the two sides, our side clearly wins because we have proved to you that with the benefiting of trade, with e-commerce, and with the foreign direct investment, these poor people are provided with jobs and can be ensured to have a better future. Therefore, we strongly urge for a con ballot. Thank you.
And the current crossfire.
Do either team need time?
No, not really.
Let's start.
We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. For the first question I want to ask Khan is that, what's the additional fund? What are your further reduction or actions in alleviating poverty?
What are our, what? Excuse me, can you repeat your question?
What's the additional funds? What are your further reduction or actions in alleviating poverty?
As we have said, we're adding another unit to the current fund. And then with these additional money, we can build more infrastructure, we can create more jobs to more people.
Can you show me the evidence that proves that, or the statistics that demonstrate has been successful.
Yeah, we have already proved to you that it is very successful. We have given you the
Can you
evidence
emphasize what-
to Tibet of how it benefited Tibet's tourism, how it
Can you
benefited
show me
Tibet's.
step by step process, or is there any research that supports your idea? Because
If you want to see it, I can send it in the chat. You can go check out that article.
And also, I believe it's our turn to ask the question. So, can you give us direct evidence on how poor people can't afford the tickets?
For highways and railways.
but of course, it is like a common sense.
How is it
like,
common sense without
their
direct
average-
logical
their
links?
Their daily average income is only $1
Exactly.
per
With
day.
building
So,
infrastructure, their
so-
daily income can be additionalized to
So
100.
how can you guarantee the outlet?
And
who
that can
who
guarantee them out of
can they get the infrastructure jobs?
Why can they not? Construction workers are not such a skilled
Or
job.
the disabilities.
People with disabilities, yes, we care about them
them.
too. We build nursing homes, we build schools, we build all of those kind of soft infrastructure too.
And also, let me remind you yet again, we're not completely eliminating welfare programs from our world, which means that the elderly can still benefit from pension, but also from nursing homes, which does not exist in your world.
I'm not saying the elderly cannot benefit from the pension, but I think you assume that with the infrastructure, so actually they still can afford, because there's 50% of the people in poverty. They're those who cannot
And
work.
that's
or
why we're
they're
providing
those
their
who
family
don't
or their
do not-
family members with job opportunities. We're providing them with
So
both
what
short-term and long-term opportunities. And we have given evidence on how construction workers that earn from 150 RMB to 200 RMB per day, which they have.
Okay, sure, sorry.
Can you give me a clear statistic about an amount of jobs increased?
Yes,
and that this
Belt and Road Initiative created 88 million jobs. The building of 5G and the spreading of 5G created 3 million jobs to the people in the rural
okay,
areas.
that is
We can also
number.
check the evidence in
make sure
the
that
chat
this
if
amount of
you
number are
want.
actually the alleviation of job, and did these amount of jobs actually go to the unemployed, or do these just go to people already in private sector, people already in construction? Can you prove to me about that?
However, like we're still like creating jobs, and these poor people, they can have construction jobs.
Well, in
so they
your
can-
world, even if education does exist,
in your
there will
world,
be no job opportunities.
there will be 0 job opportunities versus a few job opportunities. Of course, it's the few job opportunities, right?
Okay, time.
Can I have prep, please? Thank you. Can you stop the prep time? I can start. Okay. So before I go into the reason why we have won this round of debate, I would like to first tie back to our framework of this round, which is which side alleviates poverty more. Now, content never really responded directly about a correlation between alleviating poverty and the construction of infrastructure. Instead, they tell us about the benefits of infrastructure, which we have proven wrong, but haven't told us exactly why this infrastructure is alleviating people out of poverty. Now, as I clearly said in my speech, jobs are clearly not going to be given out to these unemployed people because they don't have the skill and they don't have the ability. Well, even if you assert that it will, the magnitude of this is very low compared to welfare training. They say that these unemployed don't actually need skills because they're going to have like easier jobs, but they never really specify what kind of jobs these are. And they never really told us they will be replaced in the future and whether this is actually long-term. They give us statistics about the increase in jobs. However, they haven't given us any statistic or evidence showing that these jobs are given out to the unemployed and the ones in poverty. Whereas on our side, we are educating them with this actual skills that benefit them permanently in terms that they have these skills to operate and to construct. And along with that, in terms of efficiency, welfare is much more effective and we have given to them, save them in a much more, and it's much more effective than infrastructure. We believe that pro side is benefiting both the short term and the long term for people in poverty. Short term, we're providing them with, for example, solving for COVID-19, healthcare for Asian population. And for the long term, we are providing them with education and job training that could actually take them out of poverty for generations. The because first he did not give us a resolution about how people are going to receive the infrastructure goods if they can't even like afford these fees, and they haven't talked about why an increased amount of infrastructure is so important when there are already enough necessary infrastructure, and they have failed to provide both a long-term and a short-term benefit to the people in poverty and the ones living and the ones unemployed. Thus, in terms of alleviating poverty, we believe that our side has done a much better job, and therefore, Judge, I urge you to stand pro.
Can I have like running?
Okay, I think I'm ready. Okay, so my time. Oh, can I have my? My time starts now. In this debate, contra Olympics and Consworld contributes benefit from infrastructures and welfare programs, while the more beneficial infrastructure receives more attention and more. There are only one main voting issue during this debate: one, unemployment and job opportunities. In the pro world, the government are unable to provide any job opportunities, making the poor extremely dependent on the government. And once the budget is decreased, the poor will return to absolute poverty immediately. On the con world, short-term jobs are provided by building infrastructure such as railroads, and long-term jobs are provided related to manufacturing and tourism. And Judge, we need to remind you yet again that we're not eliminating welfare from our world, which means that the poor elderly in our world can benefit from both pension and helpful infrastructure such as nursing homes. On the pro world, the increase of funds and pension still wouldn't alleviate poverty, because most of the funds go to the retired or the elderly that are not in absolute poverty. Our opponents also said that by providing the poor with education, the poor can get jobs. So in their world, no job opportunities are offered at all, putting evidence on both short-term and long-term jobs provided, and simply giving them these jobs can raise the poor above absolute poverty. In the pro world, the poor are completely dependent. There are no jobs offered whatsoever, and the education our opponents promised are not actually that promising. On the con world, both short-term and long-term jobs are provided. The elderly can both benefit from pension and infrastructure. The poor are made more independent because they can work on their own to earn their own money, and the economy is by us encouraging trade. And we also need to remind you that our opponents did rebut to how e-commerce and FDI can benefit both the poor, and also didn't rebut to how welfare causes stigma. In our world, jobs are provided, the poor elderly are benefited, the poor are more independent, and they're able to raise themselves above poverty. While in the pro world, people are extremely dependent on the government and will return to poverty the instant the government spending on local programs increased. And that's why, Judge, by comparing the world, if you want a better world, we strongly urge you to vote for Khan. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys for such a wonderful debate. So kindly give the judges a few minutes to come up with our decisions individually. All right, so the results are in, and at the end of the debate, it was a 4-1 decision, and all four judges decided to vote for pro, and one judge voted for con. And unfortunately, I was the only judge who voted for con, so I would give my reasons for voting for con, and the remaining judges would also continue. Okay, so for me, I con because I felt like they were consistent with the topic, with the resolution, and then they provided logical responses to most cross-fire questions. Even aside that, my decision was mainly based on the rebuttal, because I feel like out of all the contentions that the con team gave, the pro team wasn't able to sufficiently rebut to all of it. They stated contentions which include welfare is insufficient and infrastructure alleviates poverty, and they give subpoints such as e-commerce, FDI, etc., which I didn't see the pro team rebutting to, especially e-commerce and FDI. And when it came to their side of the rebuttal, I realized that like they rebut to cases of the pro team and even uses counter evidences to build on their own point on why welfare doesn't create job, but infrastructure does. So these are more of the reasons why I voted for con, but pro also did impressively well, and well, like I respect the other judges' decision to have voted for them. So congrats, pro.
Okay, I guess I'll go first for the judges that voted for pro. The way that I'm voting is mostly on impact and whichever side I find more intuitive. At the end of the day, I think on pro side, I see these arguments on very vulnerable groups being true. So people who lost their jobs from COVID, aging populations, people who rely on healthcare. I see that the pro is helping them, and on the con side, I see arguments on employment. I think that the con did win the employment argument and the job creation argument. The way that I'm weighing this is on pro side, the only rebuttal against pro really is that they create a really dependent world. I'm not given additional analysis to tell me why dependency is so bad, especially given the fact that I think when it comes to a lot of these populations, we should just help them, period. You need to give me extra analysis telling me why it's harmful to do so. I think, therefore, you guys need to be doing more framework analysis and telling me why the long term is so much more important than the short term. Additionally, I think there was some strategical errors you made when trying to prove your employment argument that made it less impactful than it should have been. You guys focused a lot on the BRI and the 5G infrastructure creation, which to me feeds directly into the rebuttal from the pro against you, which is that you're creating infrastructure, or that throughout the infrastructure creation process, you're only giving jobs to construction teams that already had the jobs. Whereas I think if you had focused more on your Tibet evidence and given more evidence like the Tibet evidence, so saying tourism is created and cities are connected to the globalized grid, and that creates year-on-year growth, and that helps the poor. That's a much stronger analysis, but you guys sort of like gave up on it towards the end of the debate, which meant that I'm looking at the choice you made. I'm going, well, this makes your employment argument a lot weaker. So in terms of who's more connected to the topic, I'm going pro has a slight edge in terms of the fact that they're just directly giving the poor money. Con hasn't sufficiently proven to me that the jobs will definitely go to the poor. That said, I do see it is close in my mind, and I do see where DeGraff was going with his vote, because I don't think pro's analysis on these arguments is that great, and I think there could have been a lot more on saying why these people are important, why they should be the focus of the debate. But either way, well done, pro team. Commiserations to the con.
All right, I guess I can go next, but yeah, I apologize for being in a pretty noisy environment of all of you. Okay, can you hear me? I'll briefly explain my reason for the decision. My RFD is essentially like, I think Han's logic is a little bit too simple, Like essentially when I try to get through the entire case, especially from your rebuttal speech and your summary and part of final program, essentially I think what the fun team is really trying to do is essentially just try to throw me a bunch of different examples of just some random programs that can arbitrarily create some jobs. And especially like when all of your programs are in counts of tens of millions of new jobs, which itself kind of even sounds a little bit more fishy to me, especially I think this one people that on your PRI creating like over 88 million of jobs, which is kind of like one tenth of the entire Chinese labor force. It kind of sounds to me it's a little bit too overly realistic. But even if I were to buy that piece of stuff, just know that the entire case we're trying to give me is really just to throw me with a bunch of examples on how many jobs that you can create, with very, very little analysis on like how these jobs are really distributed, like the details of these jobs, and you kind of rely on this one very single dimension definition of poverty. Like as long as you have a job, no matter what kind of job this is, no matter whether it is fitting for you, you're out of poverty, which to me sounds a little bit too simple. So like I kind of do not like what Con is focusing on here. I think like Con is really digressing a little bit from the poverty talk. So yeah, in that perspective, it sounds really simple, and I just feel Con really not fulfill the burden of proof. On the other side, I think the Pro did a relatively better job, not significantly better, but relatively better job, because Pro has a rather more wholesome definition on the root cause of employment. root cause problem, which is in your case, I think either the COVID-19 problem or the lack of education problem. So we'll kind of have a relatively better entire explanation on the analysis of the problem. So that's kind of just what I was thinking. So yeah, essentially that's kind of my own reason for this. One small thing to the profile. One small thing to the profile. So like I think at the very start of the case is that like you said like COVID is probably the number one of our and I could try to understand that, but you definitely need more evidence on that because yeah, from my own research, I personally don't feel that COVID-19 is like the biggest driver or that it dramatically changed the planning poverty alleviation scheme. It's just like I personally don't feel it is that way, but of course you can use more evidence. It's just you simply cannot think of only one arbitrary way. And also you claim that 91% of the entire Chinese areas are already covered by some basic infrastructure, which itself is kind of weak because if you really think about the definition of poverty, if you think about how many poor people are there in China, usually it's in terms of 6 or 7-digit number. And if you really compare that, divide that by the entire national population, you can see that this little percent, this little maybe 10%, or sometimes maybe even argue like 1% or even 0.1%, these group of people are exactly what we are really trying to focus on in this type of debate. So I don't think 91% is going to help you. To my opinion, it might even hurt you a little bit. But yeah, just be aware of your number, how big your number is.
Okay, I'm gonna go give some brief feedback for both teams. I think this is a very close debate to me. I think I will address the key clash in this debate regarding the employment issue. I would say that Pro wins this argument because I think that they prove it is the unemployed people that actually need the jobs most, which makes the vocational skills primary and most important to them compared to having job opportunities created by infrastructure. I think although Khan addressed how infrastructure program can create a lot of jobs, I think that you did a good job in terms of that. But I think that it is still very unclear how this job can be maintained in the long term, right? Like and eventually solve the poverty issue. I think there should be more linkage and impact in terms of that. And focus more on how poverty can be solved at the end of the day. And also, I think like Pro's rebuttal regarding how building infrastructure costing a lot of money was not responded by Khan. And like because like Pro said that it doesn't boost the economy, but rather costs a lot of money. I think that if there's more responses to that, and if like Khan can address more specific groups that you are helping with the infrastructure, then probably it will be better. And then also address the long-term issue as well. And yeah, basically this is my comment.
Okay, just to add on to some of the comments the other judges said, I agree with them. But just something to add on is that, as they said, I think employment is the biggest argument, the biggest clash you guys have in this debate. But regarding this issue, I think Pro slightly wins on this issue because I don't think Khan did a good job explaining how do people actually access these jobs. I see that you guys have good statistics. You said that 5G created like I think it was 3 million jobs, and there was another 4.6 million jobs, and the Belt Road Initiative, but by only providing the numbers is not enough, because you have to tell us how do these people who really needed these jobs are helped, and you have to tell us like how many percentage of them actually get these jobs, or else by simply telling us the statistics isn't that important. There isn't really a big impact. And also on the pro side, I think the pros, well, in the beginning, in the rebuttal speech, your response to their job argument was you ask in the crossfire that how is job a long-term effect because it were replaced by machines or something like that. I didn't really know where going with that claim, because it seems to me that if you are also arguing for like job training, vocational training, so I don't really understand why would you say that in the first rebuttal of your speech. So
I guess it's just organize your responses. Make sure you don't go like everywhere. You don't try to include everything, but go for where you also want to, aim and achieve for. Yeah, that's basically it. But I think both teams did a good job. Congratulations, everyone.
Okay, so that's the end of this debate. And now you can leave the room and have a nice day.
Thank you.